A little while ago it was like 39 degrees, so hopefully you've got a jacket on today and all that kind of good stuff. And I am real excited, kind of like what we've been doing here. A trend lately on the show is I have a guest standing by that we're going to visit with for a little while, probably about half the show. And then once we're through with that talk, I'll move on to some of the housekeeping things I like to do, like the course on stewardship and some updates on prices. I have one or two new things that I really, want to kind of get into and stuff like that. But without any further ado, I want to introduce Lorna Hammock. Lorna, are you there?
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Oh, well, I'm wonderful. Lorna is a property and casualty insurance agent here in Springfield, Missouri. And the reason why I thought it might be really productive to have her on the show is that, if you think about it, we've been talking about risk management. I mean, really from the very first show. I mean, the gold and the silver is wealth insurance. And, we've talked about a few other ways of managing risk. We had Brad Gibson on at one point talking about, advantage plans for veterans and, you're managing the risk of the healthcare system and so forth. And I thought, we can't have a complete show without having somebody that is an expert on, insuring your home and insuring your automobile. And that's what you do, isn't it, Lorna?
It absolutely is. And those day-to-day things make a big difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially living in southwest Missouri where if you don't like the weather, just wait 15 minutes and it can change on you.
Very true.
So, well, why don't you give us a little, background, why you're in insurance and, things like that, if you could, real quick.
Sure. Well, my personal background in insurance aside, insurance as a whole is probably what we're going to focus on for the most part. But as far as my credentials, I do have licensing in both property and casualty and also in life and health. So I am licensed across the board to sell all of those products. Now, keep in mind that every insurance agent probably has some things that they emphasize more than others. I am probably my biggest drive is certainly towards auto and home and life, mostly because back in, this will date me a little bit, but back in 1993, my parents' house burned to the ground.
Oh my
it
God.
was a total loss fire. Yeah, it was a total loss fire. And so, I was still a college student, and I remember I was in town, and I came over, and I just watched, kind of the remnants of the end of the fire, and just thought to myself, wow, what happens next? And thankfully, they had a great agent who had set them up properly, and they were able to rebuild over a year. It took about a year of them living in a condominium while they got everything rebuilt and had to replace everything. But I saw the exhaustion and the just really what it does to you when you lose everything. And nobody expects for that to happen. In their case, it came down to they had a new water heater installed. The water heater had some sort of issue that caused a fire in the middle of the night, and that's how a lot of these things happen. So my goal as an agent is to make sure that you have prepared for the worst, but that also that you're getting the absolute best possible coverage. And I think most agents hopefully aspire to that as well, at least the ones I know, that their hearts are in the right place. They really want to make sure that you're getting what you need.
So what you're saying is that the house burning to the ground wasn't on your parents' to-do list that day when they woke up?
No. As a matter of fact, they woke up to the fire.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah. So, and that's another whole conversation because October is Fire Prevention Awareness Month as well. So, and I believe it's also life insurance awareness. So these are all things that, in future shows you may want to talk about because these are all things that, unfortunately, you have to plan ahead. You can't wait until the water rises to get flood insurance, for example. So you need to know ahead what you're looking at. So, yeah.
So, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and had questions about, insuring their home or insuring their automobiles or renter's insurance, things like that, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Sure. Well, they would be welcome to call me at the office, but also let me just share with your listeners my cell phone simply because I carry it with me all the time. So my phone number is 417-225-2011. It's the same one that you would find on my cards as well, although I do also contain my business line on that. But for your listeners, let's just so I know that they're listening to you and they're responding. Let's go with 417-225-2011 and let me know that you're calling in response to this show.
Do you have an email address you want to share, or do you think the phone number is sufficient?
I would think that the phone number should be sufficient. Obviously, if there's any concerns on how otherwise to reach me, they can always reach out to you or to Axe Ministry. I don't necessarily want to involve email or whatever. If they can just reach out and virtually call me, that's fine.
You're probably like me. You get so many emails that the one that's important kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
I do. I appreciate the understanding there. I never want to miss anyone's email, and I'd like to think that I am meticulous about it, but there are days when I get flooded, and I don't want to miss somebody's email, but I never miss a phone call, or they're welcome to text at that number as well. So
let's if it's okay, let's kind of find out when someone's shopping for insurance, and they're currently with whoever they're with and stuff like that, but they're wanting to find out, if there's a better deal. I mean, that's kind of how everybody thinks these days and stuff like that. Do you have any tips on things they should ask about? When they're, because it's not all about price, is it?
It should not be. And therein lies the great misunderstanding for a lot of people. A lot of people think that all companies are the same. And so therefore, what difference does it make whether I'm with, for example, a Geico or a Progressive or a Liberty Mutual or a, State Farm or whatever, it's all the same thing. Well, that's not necessarily true, unfortunately. And that's where consumers get very confused and why it's important when you select your agent, because your agent can really be the difference between am I getting what I understand and what I need versus am I paying for something that I don't understand and may or may not need. So if price becomes your driving factor, the only people I know that are even vaguely served in that situation are the ones that have literally nothing to protect in any capacity. So maybe your teenage child that lives at home that isn't tapped into mom and dad, who has no way of financially rolling back on them, but most of them do. And that's, again, kind of a misunderstanding. So I feel like I talked around it instead of talking directly to what you were asking, but in the grand scheme of things, no, it's never safe to shop specifically to price. What you want to be looking for is value. What am I getting for the money I'm spending?
Well, and, in my case, I've sold life insurance since 1983, and, I've had people shop me, and that's fine and stuff like that, but, there's all these different kinds of policies, term and permanent and, index universal life and all this kind of stuff, and I get all these questions about, what to do or, and what I end up telling people for the most part is the only important insurance policy that you have is the one that you've got when you pass away. And, a lot of times, unfortunately, people, they'll have life insurance for 20 years and then they let it lapse. And then, 5 years later when they pass away unexpectedly or, whatever and stuff like that, there's nothing. And I guess, the reason I'm bringing that up is to kind of get into, what are some of the things that people aren't thinking about, like, say, claims, satisfaction, things like that? Is there other areas that they should be thinking about?
Sure. And thank you for that, because you're absolutely right. When you're looking at an insurance company, you're going to want to look for a couple of different things. First of all, you're going to want to look for at least an A to an A+ rated company. So And a lot of people don't even think to notice that, but all the advertising in the world is not going to change where you're rated, because the rating organizations are using different metrics. So they're using claim satisfaction, they're using affordability in the market, they're using those sorts of things. So you want to make sure that you've got a company that stands behind what they're selling. Secondly, you want to make sure that you're getting an agent that understands the company for which they work, that it's not just a generic policy given to people, the same policy over and over and over again. That's really not how, ideally, insurance of any kind, but most especially your auto, your home, your life insurance, are designed to work, because each person is an individual. Each family is individual. Your situation is going to be different than your neighbor's situation. So it gets really squirrely when you have people that, compare prices and say, well, how come, family A and family B that are friends with me, have better prices or have whatever than I do? Well, because their situation may be totally different, right? So when you look at a company, you want to make sure that their claims process is top notch. Now, I happen to work for a company that gets written up often about being phenomenal in that arena. And that makes me really happy. It makes it easier for me to go to work and sell the product every day, because I know when the time comes, they pay their bills, right? They take care of people. And when the rubber meets the road, so to speak, that's what you care about. Is it going to pay for, is it going to take care of the things that I think I'm covering? So those are the things that I look for. Is I look for an agent, and then I look for the background on the company. Where's the company come in on its rating? How are its claims ratings? What do its customers think overall about it? So, and all of that goes kind of into the soup to make sure that you're getting what you need for your family. And it may be a totally different product or company or whatever than, what your parents needed or what your kids may need.
Well, and I know we both are aware that we're not going to mention any names because everything's confidential and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, are there any cases that come to mind? As I ask this question, like either like a worst case scenario that you've heard about in your career, or a best case scenario where someone had an experience that was just above and beyond the call of duty by the agent or the company or the claims adjuster or something like that, that would be fun for our audience to hear about?
Sure. Well, so one of the examples I use when I talk to folks about coverages is oftentimes when people come in and they say, oh, we don't really have much, so we just want the state minimums. Well, state minimums in the state of Missouri is $25,000 per person. So if you hit another vehicle, you're paying for $25,000 for, one person, up to $50,000 per accident. So maybe two people's worth. That's it. Okay. After that, you're on the hook for the rest of that money. So it doesn't take a whole lot to do that level of damage. Anybody who's paid a hospital bill recently knows $25,000 can go very quickly. And if you actually injured a family in the process of having an accident, you could be on the hook for anything above and beyond the limits on your policy. So the reason why I bring that up is because, and this was not one of my insureds, okay? This was an insured who actually was with an agent prior to my tenure at a former company. But kid was, let's say 17 or 18, ended up getting in an accident. Again, not anything that he would have predicted doing. We don't know exactly how it had happened, whether he had gotten distracted or whatever. But at any rate, ended up being on the back end of a multi-car accident, okay? Which happened a lot, by the way. So he's held accountable for everyone in all of the vehicles all the way up the line. And there were 3 additional vehicles, if I recall. One of them ended up being a fatality.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, when these sorts of things happen, I assure you that the attorneys do not show a lot of mercy, okay? Because they're interested in covering their clients. And in the case of the fatality, they're looking to replace that person's income, that person's lifestyle, making sure that that person's wife and children are taken care of, and so on. So this young man ended up having his wages garnished for 32 years.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So if you don't think it's possible, I assure you, if you will look at the state of Missouri statutes, you will see that the state of Missouri can, in fact, and will, and I think it's up to 20% of your income for as long as it takes. They will garnish it for as long as it takes to pay back whatever would be due if, in fact, you say, well, I don't have anything, so it's blood from a turnip, right? Well, you may think so, but your future earnings can absolutely be taken. Your retirement can be taken. If you own a home, can be taken. So there's no real way except for protecting yourself on the front end to make sure that you've got enough coverage.
So that's an auto example. Do you have any, experiences with homeowners insurance? Maybe like a tip on things that most people wouldn't even think about asking their agent, especially here in Southwest Missouri. Is there anything that would be kind of a need to know?
Okay. So on home insurance, so there's a couple of funny, interesting things that kind of would be tips and tricks to know. First of all, if you're looking at a home, you might want to make sure that it only has one layer of shingles. Also, if you're looking into having your roof redone, it is preferable, and I can't tell you what to do. It's your home, and even as an agent, I don't tell people what to do. I just tell them the best case scenario and educate them and let them make their own decisions. But what I will tell you is that there is an awful lot of companies out there that if you have 2 or more layers of shingles, will not cover your roof. So
when you say won't cover, you're saying won't insure.
No, correct. Is not insuring your roof. Best case scenario, you might get what's called actual cash value, ACV, which means they go up, they deduce from that how much value the roof would possibly have, which in those situations, usually not a whole lot left, and that's what you get towards the replacement of your roof. So with a lot of homeowners, they're ending up paying, $8,000-$10,000 that they weren't expecting to pay, simply because they didn't understand what they had signed on for with their roof coverage. And of course, around here, roof coverage is awfully important because we do have a lot of wind and hail and ice storms and things that tend to damage roofs.
Sure.
So, if somebody says, well, why don't you just do a layer over the layer that you already have, I would suggest to you call your agent and have that conversation before you agree to something like that.
Okay. Speaking of agents, there's a plethora. There's my favorite word. There's a whole bunch of agents to choose from, and it's like anything else. There's some that are fantastic, and there's some that maybe aren't all stars and stuff. I mean, it's that way with every industry. But I guess what I'm curious of is, you mentioned early on when we first got on the show, the difference, as far as like when you're picking an agent, maybe things to look for. Is there anything you can share with our audience?
Well, so, and kind of like in your job, in your line of work, in your industry, I tend to look for people that see what they do as a career and not a job. And what I mean by that is, I am completely and totally devoted to property and casualty insurance. That's what I do. Sadly, I live, sleep, eat, and breathe this stuff. So, and I think if you find someone with a passion for it, you just tend to have a little bit better experience, simply because their depth of knowledge tends to be higher, and they tend to be more invested in making sure that you get exactly what you need as a consumer. I'm not saying that people that go to work every day and work a long day and see it as their job, but their true passion is something else. I'm not saying that they do a bad job. I'm just saying that a lot of times that's kind of the dividing line, is you find somebody that has devoted themselves to that and is passionate about it. And usually you can tell that most of the time you can tell that on the phone, I think. I think you can tell a lot on the phone when you talk to people. If you can reach them, that's always helpful. And then if you can meet with them in person, even better, because then you really get a sense on, what you're getting. Because in my opinion, I think an agent is very important. Now, there are people that, they just as soon go online and deal with a robot, and I'm okay with that too. That's not the type of insurance that I tend to work with.
Well, let's go back to something you just said, because it made me think of something I wanted to interject, which is, if you can get them on the phone. Well, another part of that is returning messages. And boy, I tell you what, that's one of those things that always irritates me, is if I leave a message for someone, especially if it's someone that I'm paying for a service and I don't get a return call,
Ever.
Yeah, early on in my career, I had a conversation with a very, very successful person. I'm still amazed that I got this person on the phone, and at the end of the conversation, I asked him, I said, I can't believe you returned my call. And this gentleman said, well, early in my career, I started using the sundown rule. And he goes, if I get a message during the day, I attempt to return it by sundown. And he goes, I didn't get where I am by not returning messages. And so I've always thought of his comments, and, and then I run into some person who won't return calls, and it's just like, really? So anyway, what other things can folks look for in an agent that might, help them decide if that is the person they want to do business with?
Oh, wow. There's just a myriad of things. There's another word for your book with the plethora. But there's so many things that you may be looking for. But many people find there's a comfort level in finding somebody who has a similar life experience to theirs, simply because there's a bit more understanding on how things come together. And again, that doesn't mean that a 22-year-old can't do a phenomenal job with insurance products for, a family in their 50s, right? But many people find that it is comforting to just be able to relax a little and say, okay, what it's like to have this, that, and the other going on. What would be the plan from here with the products? Which ones would you say might be the ones to learn more about? And that usually lends some trust and credibility and comfort level to most consumers. That being said, I think that's why I like meeting with people in person, because I get much more of a sense of who that person is and where they're coming from and what they know, versus if I call a phone room, maybe I know something about them just from chatting with them, but it's challenging because I can't even tell on the phone always, what age this person is. It's sometimes that can be hard. So I'm not saying you should discriminate that way, but if you're looking for a comfort level, sometimes it's important to be able to maybe flesh that out a little bit.
Well, I know from conversations I've had with you in the past, there's actually times where your company or companies, depending on how many you're representing and stuff, maybe doesn't have the best solution for that customer, that client. And I know you've actually, I always was amazed that you would do this, but, that you'd actually tell them to go, to somebody else because you knew that other company or that other agent had a better product for what they were trying to do. Is that not the case, or?
No, that's absolutely the case. And some agents will do that and some won't. My personal philosophy is it's the Miracle on 34th Street theory, right? So if you remember that movie, if any of your listeners remember that movie, I'm sure, again, this makes me seem like I'm forever old here, but, the Santa sends them off to, he's at Macy's, they send him to Gimbel's, or he's at Gimbel's, he sends them to Macy's to make sure they're getting the best deal. And what they found is that when you're able to, A, understand your own products, B, understand the consumer, and C, think of that consumer first, right? Think of their needs and what's best for them first above everything else, it always comes back to you. I have never seen it not come back to me in so many ways. And it's not always a direct way, but I know that the blessings are there because I know that I've done the right thing for those customers. And it has been a beautiful thing because I have the privilege of knowing a lot of other great agents in this industry. Some of them work at my company. Some of them work at other companies. Some of them work at independents. And I'm able to say, hey, if I can't do the right thing by you, I'm going to make sure that you're with another phenomenal agent who can. And that's been really great over the years. And I've had the same type of thing turned around with me. I've had, other agents call me and say, hey, I can't do right by these folks. They need this. Is that something you can do? And again, we're able to better shepherd these folks to where they need to be. And I think for a lot of us, especially in Southwest Missouri, that's such a priority. And I'm so grateful for that because in this industry, if I didn't have that, I don't know that I would be pleased with my career choice. But because we do have that and we are helping people and there's other people, other agents devoted to that, it just makes for such a neat environment to really help people.
So one question I was thinking of as I was listening to your answer is, I know that, and a lot of people probably don't realize this, but do you have any tips for people when they think, oh, I'm going to cancel my insurance where I'm at, and then I'm going to take a week or a month, or I'm going to take some kind of a lapse time?
Those are the things that actually make my eyes hurt.
Well, I was going to say, isn't there something in the insurance world when someone comes in?
Please never do that. If you listen to this show and you take anything away from it, it is that do not cancel your current insurance until you have something else in its place.
They don't.
The lapse,
yeah, they don't like that.
For 24 hours, will cost you exponentially more than what you think it will. You think that you're saving by going, oh, well, I don't even, I'm switching out cars. I'm getting rid of this one right now. I'm picking up the new one in 3 days. What difference does it make? I don't really want to be paying the insurance for 3 days. I promise you, paying that insurance for the extra 3 days is way cheaper than paying for a lapse in your coverage.
Really?
Absolutely.
Even 24 hours?
Even 24 hours.
Wow.
That's when you apply the sundown rule. Do not let the sun go down without knowing you have insurance.
Well, hey, we're almost out of time, so I guess what I'm curious of is, with the remaining minute or two we've got left, is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience that I haven't asked you about, or we haven't, kind of gone into with our discussion and stuff? Anything that you'd like to bring up?
I would encourage everyone to know that, first of all, an insurance product is something you do need to understand, and that you should feel comfortable with your agent asking any question and feeling like you're getting an accurate answer. If you don't have that type of relationship with your agent, I'm not going to tell you to just, bail on them altogether, but it might be worth it to look around a little bit, because when it comes right down to it, you need to have an agent that can talk to you openly, just like you would have a financial advisor you can talk openly with, just like you would have a doctor that you can talk openly with. These are things that are very important to your well-being and to your family's well-being, and it's important to find somebody that really wants to take the time and effort to get to know you and your situation so they can best recommend products that will best fit for you.
Well, and, with that said, I guess if anybody in the viewing audience has liked some of Lorna's answers and some of her tips and things like that, how best can they reach you?
Again, my cell phone number is 417-225-2011. My name is Lorna Hammock. I am a licensed property and casualty insurance agent, and I am able to write auto, home, renters, life, umbrella, earthquake, flood, and probably a few other things that motorcycle, ATVs, boats, jet skis, motorhomes. I can cover almost anything. So I even have pet insurance.
Pet insurance. What? Hey,
I do.
here's something I just thought of. What states are you licensed in?
I am currently licensed in Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas for most products.
Wow, that's quite a patch of ground.
It is quite a patch of ground. So if you or your listeners or family members can make use of the information I've shared or would like to get a quote, by all means, give me a call. Again, my phone number, 417-225-2011. Call or text, and I'll be happy to get back with you.
All righty. Well, hey, thank you so much for being on this morning's show. I know I learned a thing or two, and I hope someone in our viewing audience also learned a thing or two. You know, even if it's just one person that can benefit, I always think it's a success. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And absolutely my pleasure. Thank you, Tony, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, and I hope continued blessings on your show and also on your listeners.
Okay. You have a nice day. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All righty. So that was Lorna Hammock, property and casualty insurance agent, and a variety of other things, as you heard there at the end, here in Springfield, Missouri, and covering, I think she said, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas. So if you're just passing through and catching the Axe Media broadcast this morning and liked some of her answers or just want to get a second opinion, that type of thing, give her a call. I think she said 417-225-2011. And with that said, we're into my part where I wanted to do a little update on a few things, which the first thing I'm going to update on is for 3 or 4 shows, you probably got tired of me promoting last Thursday night, October 10th's gold and silver workshop that took place at Prima's over in Chesterfield Village. And by the way, Prima's did an outstanding job. The food was wonderful. The service, we had Chris was our waiter, and he was phenomenal, especially taking care of things while Ryan Long was up speaking. And Ryan did such a great job, not to really talk about competitive radio shows or anything, but one of the folks that attended our gold and silver workshop was Representative Len Morris, who has his own radio show on a different network on Friday mornings. And he pulled Ryan aside after his presentation and asked him if he was going to be in town Friday morning and could he be on the show. And so Ryan and I were able to join Len Friday morning on his show, and Ryan was able to talk a little bit about why gold and silver makes so much sense. Now, one last little bit, and this isn't me trying to rub salt in the wound, but it's going to sound like it. I didn't know he was going to do this because I think I kept saying we were going to have a drawing for one silver dollar, but everybody in attendance got a silver dollar from Ryan Long, and mine is a 1925 silver dollar. It is so cool. I mean, this is, an ounce of silver. It's a coin that's older than I am. The value, I mean, if you look at the price of silver right now, it's about almost $18. So, even though it's a dollar as far as currency, as far as value, it's much, much more. And what was funny, I was showing this to a friend of mine the next day, and he was like, well, it says in God we trust, but the U looks like a V. So we're trying to figure out if it may have some weird additional value because of that. I don't know. Maybe that's how they used to spell it back then. I'm sure some of our viewers out there may know. If you do, call in or text in to Matt. And speaking of Matt, hey, did you want to do a plug for the store?
Yeah, let's adjust my microphone here. I think it's still on, isn't it? Can you hear me okay, Tony?
I cannot hear you. The Natural Solutions Store .biz.
.bz.
We're going to have Matt here give just a quick promotional segment here.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right, so we're getting ready to switch over to my face. Ready, Jay? Yep, you there. All right. Hey, everybody. Matt here, coming to you live from the producer's desk here at the New Gold Standard with Tony Hammock. Thank you, Tony, for doing what you do. We appreciate it. Now, today's show, as you well know, Tony's mentioned it already, that this show is brought to you by naturalsolutionstore.bz. Now, we have a wide variety of different products on naturalsolutionstore.bz that would probably be relevant in your life today. Everybody needs enough vitamins and minerals and things to keep their body working as it should. One of the things I'm going to talk about today would be 5-HTP. Now, not a lot of people know what 5-HTP is, but I can tell you what it benefits. It supports a positive mood. It's a little bit of an appetite suppressant, and it promotes normal sleep. Now, these come in, there's 180 capsules in each one of these bottles, and each capsule is 200 milligrams apiece. It is the building block of serotonin. That's the feel-good neurotransmitter that regulates our moods, sleep cycles, and even influences our responses to pain. Now, preliminary evidence suggests that the supplementation with 5-HTP may promote weight loss by helping to reduce appetite and caloric intake. 5-HTP also provides natural mood-enhancing ingredients to promote well-being and stress reduction, which may especially be beneficial to those on a weight management program. Because as you know, I eat when I'm stressed, so this would be something to be beneficial for me. It contains 180 capsules, up to 6 times as many as our competitors. Now, all of our products are USA manufactured in our FDA registered facility according to strict CGMP standards. Now, our formulation is non-GMO, gluten-free, and all-natural. Now, these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, and this product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. So if this is relevant to you, or even if it's not, go on to naturalsolutionstore.bz and check out and see if there's something that we can help you supplement with today. So back to you, Tony.
Thank you, Matt. I always like your little plugs for the Natural Solutions Store. What I wanted to do now in the next little bit we've got is get into the new course on stewardship. Yes, I found one. I am so excited. And this one, you're going to love this. This one's titled God's Perspective on Money. Yes, it is actually a different course. There's about 5 or 6 of them I've found. But this one, the first lesson, I guess you'd call it, of this one is called the real treasure. This is Proverbs 15:16 says, "In the house of the righteous there is much treasure, but in the revenue of the wicked is trouble." Notice that this verse does not declare there is treasure in the house of the righteous. It says there is much treasure in the house of the righteous. You can also find treasure in the house of the wicked, but Solomon says it is laced with trouble. The income of the wicked has a bunch of trouble with it. But the same is not true for those who are right with God. When the treasure is found in their house, it does not have the same trouble that it does when it is found in the house of the wicked. If you read on, the Lord shares 2 things that must accompany this treasure if it is going to be enjoyed. First, you must have a right relationship with God. Proverbs 15:16 says, "Better is a little with the fear of the Lord than a great treasure with trouble." It is better to have almost nothing and have a right relationship with God than to have everything money can buy and not have a relationship with God. And boy, amen to that. We must get our priorities right. The second thing we need to have is a right relationship with people, lest the treasure become hollow and become a curse. Proverbs 15:17 says, "Better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a fatted calf with hatred." Some people have more prosperity than they know what to do with, but all of their relationships fail. They do not have love. Consequently, there is a vacuum they can never fill with things that they can never fill by accumulating more possessions. Pursue your relationship with God and a right relationship with people. Then you will enjoy the treasure God gives you. And that was the devotional of this first lesson on stewardship, God's perspective on money. And the Bible verse was Proverbs 15:6. So next week we'll do the second lesson. But there's so many things in that are right, and some that I can identify with. I'll never forget 1997. I know that's going back a couple years. I guess 22 and stuff, but I'd had a phenomenal year of business and income. And I remember I was visiting with my doctor. I always got my physicals in December because that was the slowest month for me. And, I just told him how much I had made, and I said, I'm miserable. And so, of course, being a good doctor, he pulled out his prescription pad and, rifled off a prescription that I should go fill. But it did take me a little while to kind of figure out what was missing, and that was obviously, having God in my life. So just a great show and a great ministry here at Acts Ministry and Acts Media Group. I like to continue with that stewardship because I think it keeps us on track and so forth. For those of you that have forgotten or aren't aware, don't forget there is a telethon that will be coming up the 28th and 29th, the Acts Ministry Telethon. It'll be 12 hours each day. If you haven't got that on your calendar, please do so. I think that you'll find that it'll be full of all kinds of exciting things, silent auctions, ways to help the Acts Ministry. I know that Jim Whining, his goal is to raise $25,000 for the ministry, and I can't think of a better ministry to try and support than the Acts Ministry. As far as price updates, let's do that real quick, this segment of the show. This is as of 9:40 a.m. this morning. Gold was at $1,483.60. Silver was at $17.35. Platinum was at $882. Palladium was at $1,774. And rhodium is at $5,400. I don't know why I do that. Rhodium just is so, one, so much more expensive, and two, it's just kind of a fun name to do that with. Those were all by the ounce. Now we'll get into the other metals, and these are by the pound. Copper's at $2.57. Nickel, $7.62. Aluminum at 77 cents. Zinc's at $1.10. Lead's at 98 cents. And uranium, another one of my favorites for those of you that have watched the show now for a while. But that's at 25 bucks. So crude oil's at $53.08. And the market today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average at 941 was off 38.3 points, and it's resting at 26,986.50 for the moment. So I like to do that because remember one of the main missions of this show is to talk about alternative assets. We've focused mainly since we've started this on the gold and the silver, and rightly so, because that's, those are God's money. That's the two that most people are familiar with. They're probably the two that are the most easily accessible because you can get them from me. And if you do need to reach me, just in case you haven't watched before, you can always reach me at 417-755-0700. Once again, 417-755-0700. Or you can email me at tony@thegoldaffiliate.com. Once again, tony@thegoldaffiliate.com. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have in regards to gold and silver and the other metals that we've talked about. Eventually, once we get a few more shows under our belt, I'll probably get into some of the cryptos, the Bitcoins, the Litecoins, the Ethereum, and so forth. It's just that gold and silver's been having such a place in the news lately because of everything that's been going on, between the tariffs and the trade war, and now the Federal Reserve they're printing more money. A couple of weeks ago, a month ago, they started buying these repos, and these aren't repos like repossession of cars. These are repos, which is a financial instrument that the Fed uses between them and banks to give the banks some liquidity on a short-term basis. And all of a sudden, about a month ago, Jay Powell and the Fed started buying repos in a big way. In fact, I think it was just a little bit after Labor Day, if I remember correctly, which means that they were trying to get some more liquidity into the system. So what does that tell you? If there was a lack of liquidity, where does that take us and stuff? Well, now, just this last week, they have announced another program where they're going to be buying bonds at a pretty large amount each and every week. And I don't have the story right in front of me, so I don't know the amount off the top of my head, but I just remember reading it going, okay, here is more printing of new money, essentially, because as they buy bonds, what are they paying for the bonds with? They're paying with cash, right? And that's cash that's been printed with nothing backing it up. It's a fiat currency. There's nothing backing it up. There's no gold or silver or anything. It's just that the government has said, hey, this is currency. You can use this to buy goods and services, and for the moment, it seems to be working. But there's a lot of folks out there that think that that may be short-lived. One of the things I wanted to do this morning is to kind of get into another little area, and this is a great little segue for me to kind of go from that, talking about the printing of money, to what it's kind of doing to us as citizens of the U.S. and of the world, I guess. And, you know, one question I've got for everybody is, are you working harder for money to cover the basics? I mean, I don't know about you folks, but, you know, I mean, sometimes the month's just a little too long between paychecks and stuff. And, you know, it's not just you. I mean, there's higher costs and added financial pressures on families today that's causing fear and uncertainty and doubt on a large scale. And, you know, I mean, my wife and I, we know what it's like. You know, we've got 4 boys and a mortgage and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I mean, if there's some uncertainty, you know, it weighs in on how I make decisions. I mean, I hate to say that, but, you know, it may keep us from going to Silver Dollar City one weekend because we don't have the money. Or it may keep us from doing some family event because there's an admission fee or something like that. So, you know, these things do have an impact on the family, and wouldn't it be neat if we could alleviate those uncertainties and so forth. As of May of 2017, 44% of the Americans said they could not cover a $400 emergency expense and would rely on credit cards, selling something, or borrowing the money if such an event arose. What's happening with your money? You know, it's in the numbers, but I mean, think about that for a second. And if you're one that falls into this category, I mean, I'm not passing judgment. I'm just saying it's kind of the way it is. I mean, you know, if all of a sudden you had a $400 expense that you didn't know about, kind of like Lorna was talking about her folks' house burning down back in 1993. I mean, let's say you walked out to your car this morning and all 4 tires were flat. And they were flat because somebody had, you know, stuck a knife in the side, you know, the sidewall. So you'd have to buy 4 new tires. They can't patch the sidewall. You know, all of a sudden, that's probably $400 at least. And where would you get it? Would you throw it on a credit card? Would you have to borrow money? Do you have it in your wallet? So not to take too much time on that, but, you know, one of the key things is the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar. And back in 1913, when the Federal Reserve created the Treasury Department and hence the Internal Revenue Service, which are all great people, by the way. But, you know, back then a dollar was a dollar. You know, there was 100 cents in the dollar, and you could go out and buy 100 cents worth of goods and services back then. In 1933, FDR's executive order makes it illegal to hold gold coin, bullion, or certificates. So, you know, we had that experience. And that, remarkably, if you think about it, 1933, remember when we were talking about Ryan Long coming to town, and then the one show I had Ryan Long on, there is a neat advantage to owning pre-1933 coins. Because if you buy and sell them, you don't have to fill out a 1099 when you do so, which for some people, that privacy is paramount. 44 was the Bretton Woods meeting in New Hampshire, where they established the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. And then in 1971, President Nixon, August 15th to be exact, made the big announcement that the gold window ends, the Bretton Woods Agreement, and begins the modern-day fiat currency system. Gold would no longer back the U.S. dollar. And that's really kind of the starting point. But essentially from 1913 to essentially today, the dollar has lost about 96% of its value since it was created by the Federal Reserve back then. And, I mean, that's huge. I mean, you can see it. I had that one book in, I don't have it with me today, but from the year I was born, 1958, and how much a car cost or how much a house cost. As far as everyday pricing and so forth, if you're an urban renter, your prices are up 51.8% since 2000. If you're a retired couple, they're up 61.6. And if you're a young family, they're up 78.3. Holy cow, the cost of diapers alone has gone up astronomically. These are all from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Price increases, food at home's up 43%. These are all from since 2000. If you go out to eat a lot, 59%. Heat sources. Heat sources are up 99%. And that's important because think about where we're at. This morning it was 39 degrees when I came in here. Car insurance. We had Lorna on this morning talking about auto and home, and that's up 97%. These insurance companies, they're not fools. They're going to make sure they've got, their tail ends covered, and so their prices have had to go up as they have to cover more and more claims. Water and sewer is up 133%. College tuition, holy cow, there's a big one. We have 4 boys. One's graduated and 2 are still going to college, and one's in 6th grade. But college is up 151%, and I don't see it going down anytime soon. And then last but not least is medical care is up 97% since 2000. So that's why, I'm in here talking about gold and silver, because those are 2 items that have maintained their purchasing value. For example, in 1965, 1 ounce of silver was $1, and you could buy a gallon of milk. So you come back to, or fast forward to 2019, if you had $1, could you buy a gallon of milk? Heck no. Go to the store and look at what it's cost. But if you had an ounce of silver, you could buy 5.1 gallons of milk. So there's a great ratio. How about a movie ticket? Back in 1965, $1 or an ounce of silver could have bought you a movie ticket. Today, the silver could probably buy you almost 2 tickets, depending on where you're going. But the dollar sure couldn't even come close. It's had a 95% decrease in its spending power. Meanwhile, on the milk, the silver's gone up 410% as far as its buying power, and on the movie ticket, it's gone up 80%. Real quick on the Mustang, I love this one, and then we're almost out of time. In 1965, the Ford Mustang was $2,500. So if you had 2,500 $1 bills or 2,500 1-ounce silver coins, I guess, you could have bought a Ford Mustang. So let's fast forward to 2019. If you had 25 $100 bills, what could you buy? You probably can't buy a good used car, let alone a new Ford Mustang. Whereas if you had 2,500 ounces of silver, you'd have enough to buy 2 Ford Mustangs. It probably wouldn't be the Shelby one. It'd probably be more the stock versions and stuff. But still, that's how much of a benefit there is to having some of your dollars in gold and silver, because they do maintain their purchasing value. And the rest of this will have to wait till next week, because we're almost out of time. Quick recap, we had Lorna Hammock on, and you can reach her at 417-225-2011. She's an expert with property and casualty insurance. You're always welcome to call me at 417-755-0700, or you can email me at tony@thegoldaffiliate.com. There's the telethon coming up the 28th and the 29th. Don't miss out. There's some great opportunities there as far as different items that will be auctioned off. And how are we doing, Matt?
You got about 30 seconds.
30 seconds? What can I do in 30 seconds? I don't know. I guess I can say thank you a lot and not yell at Matt's ear anymore. He just fell over out of his chair. That's quite a sight to behold and stuff. But, we're always grateful for Jim and Pam Whining for allowing us to have the show on Wednesday mornings. Dr. Paul, the founder of Acts Ministry, I got to tell you, it's a neat ministry. They have a lot of ministries within the organization. They've got one for veterans and several others. If you can, partake in the telethon. We'll be back next week with another show, hopefully one that'll be valuable, and bring in some, even if it's just one thing and one person out there in the audience benefits from, I always consider it a success. So at that point, I'm going to say goodbye because I think 30 seconds in my head has just gone by. But if it hasn't, I guess I'll sit here and look awkward for a minute or two. But we love the opportunity. Thank you so much, Springfield. Thank you, Acts Ministry and Acts Media Group viewers and listeners. And, just feel free to give us a call, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much.